Dan Schueftan, it's an honor meeting you here today. I'd like to ask you about your interpretation of the Iron Swords War.
Let me discuss the war from a strategic perspective, and I'll start by saying something that is not only counterintuitive, but also very difficult morally to explain. Wars can be good if the alternative is worse wars. In the Second World War, had the British not started the Second World War in September 1939, they would have allowed Hitler to dominate Europe and Stalin to dominate other parts of the world, or many things that could have been a calamity for civilized life in general would have happened had Britain not gone to war. Had the Americans not gone to war, not only against Japan, but also against Germany, after Pearl Harbor, it would have been a calamity. Had the Allies stopped the war in 1943 before they decimated, destroyed Germany and brought it to unconditional surrender, it would have been bad. So the initial intuitive approach that says, let's stop a war, people are killed. If we stop the war, people will not be killed, is a very short-sighted perspective. When you combat barbarians, when you combat something that is evil that could take over, you need to ask yourself, do I have to start a war? Do I have to continue the war? Do I have to expand the war? In the interests of peace, in the interest of reaching something where the radicals cannot destroy the lives of civilized people, where barbarians cannot undermine civilization. This war, when you look at it retrospectively, changed something very fundamental in the Middle East that is very, 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 very positive. Because the radicals have been dealt a blow that resonates throughout the region and will stay with us for a long time if we maintain the consequences of the war. We'll speak about it later. And it started only with Hamas. It could have been much, much worse if Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas would have started the war together, two fronts in Israel, perhaps a third front from the West Bank, and in addition, thousands of missiles from Iran. At least initially, it would have been much more difficult for Israel. But something more important than evading an all-out war in the early stages happened in this war. Israel demonstrated that if you are determined enough and strong enough, you can break the radicals. And the radicals you don't want to negotiate with. You want to break them. You want to bring them to a point where even if you later enter into negotiations, you enter into negotiations where they are so weak that they have essentially to capitulate. Not forever. These guys get up in the morning in order to kill Jews, and we will have more wars and more confrontations. We've had it for 100 years. I doubt if in the next 100 years there will be tranquility in the Middle East. But there is a major distinction. If all the Arab world, or the overwhelming majority of the Arab world, is fighting Israel, as they did until 1979, or do you have the radical remnants of the Arabs, Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq and in Syria, only the remnants of the radicals in the Arab world fight Israel. Now, it's very bad and very dangerous that they have the Iranian support. But imagine you would have had the Iranians and the overwhelming majority of the Arab world fighting Israel together. It would have been a calamity, not only for Israel, but also for the rest of the Arab world, because Israel would have responded in a way that would have been much harsher then it could respond now carefully in relative terms. But what happened in October 7th was Israel waking up from the delusion that you can help radicals improve their life, and then they will abandon their ideas and their practical search for killing Jews. I mean, not just ideologically hoping for it, but practically going to war to slaughter Jews, which is the only thing they get up in the morning for. And it's not just Hamas. It is the society of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And if Israel were not in control in the West Bank, they would have controlled the West Bank as well. So when it comes to radicals, such as Hamas and its supporters in the Palestinian society, and Hezbollah, and Syria, and the Houthis, they openly say that this is what they are about. You know, the Houthis have a flag, and it says, "Death to America, death to Israel, humiliation for the Jews, and God is great." This is what they are about. Okay? This is not something that they do now because they have been attacked or they have been wronged or they're poor or any other dumb excuse. This is because this is what they are about. And under these circumstances, don't try to help them, break them. Don't wait until they start a war against you. Start a war against them. And we made the mistake of letting them build factories that produce missiles. And we allowed them to build an underground city in Gaza on a scale that we've never known. We allowed them to train and recruit people for war with Israel. And we even acquiesced when they shot rockets into Israeli cities, and we responded in a very measured way, in a very proportional way, instead of destroying their infrastructure on a massive scale, as we had to do after October 7th. So, first, the war in Gaza. We decimated Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood structure that supports it, and we ruined the city and the Gaza Strip. The reason we had to ruin it was that practically every house was booby-trapped and every hospital was a headquarters of terrorism and every school was a military position and every nursery was a deposit of weapons. But the fact that we destroyed it is not only absolutely necessary for military reasons so that they don't kill us on a massive scale when we respond to their aggression, it is also something that sends a message that reverberates throughout the Arab world. If you're a radical and you think you can get away with raping Jewish women and burning Jewish children and kidnapping old people and being the barbarian that you are, showing that you are a barbarian, you did not take out a barbarian act. You are a barbarian. Okay? And if barbarism succeeds, then the barbarians will take over Egypt. Because the strongest political force in Egypt are the Muslim Brothers, the same barbarians that you have in Gaza. And actually, they won the elections. And only a military coup removed them. And thank God for the military coup, because what you have in Egypt was the choice between the Muslim Brotherhood and a regional war and a military coup without a regional war. Again, counterintuitive. Would we have liked to see Egyptian democracy? Yes. Is there anything like it on a major scale? Unfortunately not. I wish they were. But they're not. So, if the Muslim Brothers can say, we can rape and kidnap and burn the Jews and get away with it, Then they take over Egypt. Then they take over Jordan. They're very, very strong in Jordan, the Muslim Brotherhood, to a very large extent thanks to the Palestinians that carry the same inferior political culture. Inferior in the sense that if what you're saying to your children, your only role model is a terrorist, if this is what you say, the only person who will have a school named after him is somebody who killed Jews, and no matter what Jews, but the more the better, then there is something wrong with your political culture. You may have a great culture in other fields, but your political culture is wrong. So in Jordan, you have so many Palestinians, actually a majority of Palestinians. And what you have in Jordan is the Muslim Brothers being on the brinks of taking over. And if they would have been able to come to Jordanian public opinion and say, look, we have done what you want, namely, we butchered the Jews and we got away with it, then Egypt and its moderate policy is in danger, and Jordan and its moderate policy is in danger, and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Morocco are all in danger. So you need not only to break the Muslim Brotherhood, you need to humiliate it. You need to show that it's not desirable for Egyptians to support the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, do we have difficulties in Gaza, and is it not yet over, and will it not be over for a very, very long time? Yes. We've been fighting in Gaza for the last 100 years. I'd be surprised if in the next 100 years we will not have to go into Gaza again. Because again, you have a barbaric culture in Gaza. So, have we finished it off once and for all? No. Have we reduced it in a very, very major way? Have we undermined the message of the Muslim Brotherhood in a very, very major way? Remember, this is the only Arab place where you had a de facto state ruled by the Muslim Brotherhood. And now it is extremely important to prevent by force that they come back, because these barbarians only have war on their mind, nothing else. But we have achieved that. The second thing we have achieved is that we didn't stop the war when the Americans insisted we should stop the war, because they said, in a very simple-minded way by the Biden administration, war is a bad thing, people are getting killed, so let's stop the war, people will get killed. Wrong. You stop the war prematurely, more people get killed. On both sides. So Israel, against the will of the Biden administration, continued the war. Lebanon started the war, Hezbollah started the war from Lebanon on October 8th. But Israel did not stop the war when it was convenient for Hezbollah. After they managed to evacuate tens of thousands of Israelis from their towns and villages in the north, it would have been very comfortable for Hezbollah to say, okay, now we caused enormous damage to Israel, zero damage to us, we are much better prepared for war, we have tens of thousands of long-range missiles and accurate long-range missiles, and more than 100,000 under either rockets, projectiles that can hurt Israel. And now we want to stop the war when we have caused enormous damage to Israel and no damage was caused to us. So Israel, against the will of the United States, invaded Lebanon, destroyed Hezbollah infrastructure in the south, bombarded Beirut, destroyed the long-range missiles, killed Nasrallah, continued the war, and now we have a ceasefire in Lebanon that is very interesting. Hezbollah is not firing a shot, and Israel continues to kill terrorists every day, at least one terrorist every day since November, since the ceasefire, because they know that if they start firing, we will renew our attacks in Beirut. And therefore, the way it should be, they are frightened of Israel. They know that we can break them again and again, harder and harder, and America won't stop us. Even the Biden administration, so certainly the Trump administration, supported in Lebanon a ceasefire that actually gives Israel a free hand to do what is necessary to prevent the renewal of the war. The only way to prevent renewal of the war is to kill every infrastructure that they have and every terrorist operative that they have before they come to kill us. Okay, that's the only way. But something even more important. Hezbollah used to be the ultimate protection for the Iranian nuclear project. The idea was, if Israel will consider attacking the Iranian nuclear project, Hezbollah will fire from Lebanon hundreds of thousands of projectiles, many of them long-range accurate missiles that can destroy Israeli cities, Israeli infrastructure, Israeli bases, and so on. We cannot, being the best defended country against missiles ever in human history, there is a level of saturation that they could reach that we would not be able to prevent them from doing so. And what we've seen here on a relatively minor scale with the Iranian ballistic missiles would have been much, much, much worse if Hezbollah would not have been in a position where basically all its teeth were pulled out. Namely, we destroyed not all, but a very, very large portion of its long-range accurate missiles. We killed their leaders, the substitutes for their leaders. That's very important. Kill the leadership. These are barbarians. They don't deserve being treated like legitimate enemies, even in war. With terrorists, you kill them. We killed them in Gaza. We killed them in Lebanon. We killed them in Iran. We should kill them in Yemen with the Houthis. I hope we will still kill them. The only way you can do it, their substitute and their substitute of substitute. And the result is that when Israel attacked the Iranian nuclear project, Hezbollah did nothing, zero. They were armed and financed and trained by the Iranians to do it, and in the hour of truth, nothing happened. When push came to shove, they couldn't do anything because we destroyed them. And Hezbollah, from being a strategic threat that Israel did not have a good response to, turned into a nuisance, a major nuisance, but not a strategic threat to Israel. We have broken the strategic threat of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and through the maintenance that we now do, we will prevent its resurgence. Not completely, but to a very large extent. This is number two. Number three, Iran, the most important. Iran established itself as a very important, a critically important regional power. And in the eyes of the Arabs, the most important regional power. And Arab states were aware of how weak the Arabs are and how strong Iran is. In Iran, you have the combination, very much like Nazi Germany, of a very able people with a barbaric leadership. One day, when you get rid of the barbaric leadership, when the Iranians themselves get rid of the barbaric leadership, Israel and Iran will be on the best of terms. This is what happened until 1979. Iran and the United States, Iran and Europe will be on the best of terms because the Iranians are capable of achieving things without killing everybody around them. They are capable in terms of science, of technology. They can meet the challenges of the 21st century, Iran could have a great future if you get rid of the barbarians who control them today. And these barbarians had a very realistic, hegemonial ambition of taking over the Arab world, not only its oil and its strategic location, but also Mecca and Medina. And then it would be a very, very major danger to Europe and to world order in general. The Europeans refused to acknowledge it, but Iran could have become a major global danger. And if they have nuclear weapons, it's even worse than North Korea and Pakistan. You have other two nations that are very dangerous, and this is particularly dangerous, and this is North Korea and Pakistan. But North Korea and Pakistan don't have any major ambitions of taking over all their region. Okay? So here you have barbarians, capable barbarians, with relatively weak neighbors, and if you have immunity through nuclear weapons, you can hegemonize the region and actually change the global balance of power. And Israel hesitated to a very large extent because of legitimate and understandable American pressures to go and attack Iran. On the one hand, it was not easy in itself. We're speaking about something that is 2,000 kilometers away from Israel. And the Iranians had their proxies, the ring of fire of proxies around Israel, and would have used Hezbollah and Hamas and the Palestinians and others, Houthis and others. And it is only when we destroyed Hamas and we destroyed Hezbollah and the Syrian regime fell, the Assad regime, as a direct result of what Israel did, that the way was opened to Iran. But also the Americans were legitimately saying, if you're going to attack Iran, we will be drawn in. And Israel cannot afford to draw the American people into a war that the American people does not want to go into. And therefore, Israel hesitated from doing what it had to do, and now it got the opportunity to do what it had to do anyway. A, because we destroyed the proxies of Hamas and the way to Tehran opened, and B, because to my amazement and delight, the Iranians proved to be as stupid as the Arabs. For a very long time, you had stupid Arabs who, when they were radicals, didn't know when to stop. Not all Arabs, but many radical Arabs were unbelievably stupid because they allowed their radical sentiment to get the better of their strategic mind. And the Iranians were very careful. And recently, they made 3 major mistakes. The one was attacking Israel in April 24, because we killed a general that was the arm of Iran in Hezbollah. So we were fighting Hezbollah, you fight whatever is with Hezbollah, including the Iranian general who coordinates the relationships and the fighting of Hezbollah against Israel. And then they responded by a barrage of ballistic missiles against Israel. So they started a war, not only by creating the situation of the war. For instance, Germany did not start a war against Britain. It wanted to dominate Europe in a way that would have threatened Britain, so Britain started the war. Here, the Iranians not only made the war inevitable, they started it by shooting ballistic missiles into Israel. And then again, stupidly, unbelievably stupid, in response to our killing of the head of Hamas in Tehran, by again firing a very large barrage, and then Israel responds in a way that destroys the air defense of Iran. So the way is open, not only in the road to Tehran, but also over Tehran and over the military industries and the nuclear industries of Iran. So they gave us not only the legitimacy and increasing dramatically the motivation, but even the possibility to do it militarily. And dumb as they were, they also did not negotiate in good faith with the Americans, even with the purpose of cheating them. Iran never negotiates other than for cheating. Iran cheats. Whatever it does, it cheats. But it was smart enough for a while not to cheat where it was not in her best interest. Now it didn't even pretend to negotiate in good faith, and therefore they have driven Trump into a position that was ideal from an Israeli point of view and counterproductive from the Iranian point of view. So what you have here is an opportunity that Israel tried and demonstrated. More importantly, demonstrated to the Arab world, but to the whole world. It demonstrated how vulnerable Iran is, that it is not really a first-class regional power, it is a third-class military power. Now, don't misunderstand me, it's not a paper tiger. It is still a challenge, okay? But not even remotely resembling the magnitude of the position it had before as a regional power. And then the Arab states understand that whereas the Americans are immeasurably more powerful than Israel, Israel is much more dependable than the United States, because in the United States you can always have an Obama coming back and giving Iran a blank check to become a threshold nuclear power by saying, too early, too early, too early, too early, oops, too late, too late, too late, too late. Okay, this was more or less what Obama did. So Israel now, in its enormous success, I mean, think about it. Israel acted as if it had a strategic air force, and only the Americans have a strategic air force over the skies of Tehran. It is beyond the rosiest dreams as an Israeli than you can imagine. And now is the time to wrap up the war, knowing that the fighting will continue. Hamas will not give up, Hezbollah will not give up, Iran will not give up. This is not the equivalent of killing Hitler or Hitler committing suicide in the bunker in Berlin or signing on an American battleship in Tokyo Bay, an unconditional surrender. We're not there and we won't be there. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, they don't let you bring people to a point where they must capitulate. Okay? Today you're saying, oh, yes, the individual people are not guilty, so let's give them humanitarian aid while they're killing us. Okay? So we live in an era where bringing somebody to capitulation is impossible. But you can dramatically reduce the threats to Israel. And the threat to Israel was reduced twice, dramatically. First, in 77-79, namely when Egypt abdicated its position of leading the whole Arab world in a struggle against Israel, and there has never been a substitute for Egypt in that sense, because Saddam Hussein tried, but it was ridiculous. And second, in this war, where we hit the radicals so hard, and we adopted a policy of preemptive response. In other words, not waiting for them to do something, but destroying them once they have the ability to fight against us. So I think that in Lebanon we have a major success. In Gaza we have a very important success, in spite of the fact that it is more difficult to have the maintenance of it. In Iran we have an enormous success which doesn't get rid of the problem. Again, if you think like an engineer, what's the problem? What's the solution? You can't think strategically. You need to say, here is a problem that doesn't have a solution, but you can do damage control and you can use opportunities. Damage control in Iran, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza, in the West Bank. Opportunities in the Arab world. We can now work together with the Arabs on the same enemies. The Muslim Brotherhood, the Iran, and struggling with the repeated tendency of Americans not to understand what's going on in the Middle East. That's also a problem that Arab states and Israel are struggling with. So we are today in a dramatically better situation than we were before the war. And now we need to cash in our achievements by getting a good understanding with more Arab states, not necessarily normalization, but a very different kind of cooperation that will be extremely beneficial for both sides.
How do you explain? First of all, thank you, Dan. That was fascinating. I would like to ask, how do you explain the seemingly easy Israeli dominance of the skies of Tehran?
It was not easy. It was something that we prepared for a very, very long time with excellent intelligence. Actually, look, when we started realizing how vulnerable we were from missiles, and this was in the first Gulf War, we started a process with ending up as Israel being the best defended country in the world against missiles, selling the Arrow to Germany for 4 billion euros. I said in the German Bundestag, I said, think in historical terms about the fact that the only way to defend Berlin from a nuclear holocaust is a Jewish weapon. I think it's interesting, also morally and historically, not only in terms of selling weapons. So you're challenged, you find a response, again, not a perfect solution, but a response, the best response anybody in the world has, and then you sell it. Okay? In the Yom Kippur War, we were overwhelmed by huge fleets of tanks, and we developed the PGMs, precision guided munition, on a very, very high level, and now we benefited from it. In Gaza, in Iran, in Lebanon, even in the West Bank sometimes. You know, we use drones to kill a terrorist when we identify him. There's no point in letting soldiers run after him. You can kill him from the air with a very precise weapon. By the way, so precise, I recently told one of the commanders in the Air Force that the Israeli Air Force can now offer circumcision services from space. Okay? Very, very accurate weapons. Now we have learned our lesson. Don't wait for the terrorists to be prepared for a war. Kill them before they do. Unfortunately, this is what we have unlearned again and again and again and again. We've learned it, but always unlearned. Always somebody came with the bright idea, happy enemy, happy life. Okay? No. All you give them will be weaponized. Palestinians weaponized kites. They weaponized condoms. They filled it with helium and attached incendiary devices to it and let the wind carry it to Israel to burn forests in Israel. Okay? That's what they do. They kill Jews. Okay? Again, this is their only role model. So we have learned from these, and we have adjusted ourselves to the new kind of war. And when it came to Tehran, everything we have learned about what they can do to us forced us to prepare with excellent intelligence and a very sophisticated air force. And when we are prepared, we are doing very well. Against Hezbollah, we did very well because we prepared ourselves for a very long time. In Iran, we did very well because we prepared ourselves for a long time. In Gaza, in the first days, we didn't respond because we didn't prepare ourselves for it. And democracies are never prepared for war. They always tell themselves a story about the other side being like us. They're like us, only they speak Arabic. No. There are Arabs you can deal with, that you can respect. People in the UAE, somebody like King Hussein, King Abdullah. Yes. But with the barbarians, the only thing you can do is you can kill them. And then kill those who come after them, and then kill those who come after them, knowing that there is no solution. By the way, this is not only true about the Arab-Israeli conflict. There is no solution to crime. Okay, you are a sovereign state, you don't have to kill people, but you can arrest them. And there will always be a new rapist. Because some people are like that. And also, some collectives are dominated by people like that. Okay? Even if not everybody is like that, the collective is dominated by people like that. So I think that our achievements in Iran are the product of understanding the depths of the threat, constantly preparing, investing a lot in intelligence and in technology, but understanding how to run it strategically. It's not important, not only crucial that every component will be very good. You need to orchestrate it in a way that it works very well.
Mm-hmm. Who's to say that we won't unlearn this lesson of happy enemy, happy life?
Nobody. Look, we've learned the lesson in 29 and forgot it when we came to 36, 39. We learned the lesson in 47 and forgot it later. If you look at recent periods, we learned it in the Second Intifada and we unlearned it now. I have tried, I'm being very personal now, I have tried to prevent Israel to unlearn it by speaking to people who are making decisions and telling them, don't you see what you're doing? And they didn't. I failed.
So another massacre is inevitable?
I hope not. I hope that we have learned better than before because the trauma was worse than before. Okay? We have very rarely witnessed helplessness as we did on the 7th and the 8th of October. I hope that this trauma will prevent the unlearning.
Wow. You said before.
By the way, I think there is something very good in the fact that Israeli progressives have committed electoral suicide. They're not even represented in the Knesset. Even the merits that you have today are not these starry eyes, let's have peace, and the Palestinians are nice people and we've wronged them, so it doesn't exist in Israel. It's in Harvard, okay? In Israel, they are a cult, they have a newspaper, and they perform their services there, but they have zero impact on the Israeli political scene.
You said before something about the Iranian people being different than the Arabs in Gaza. Can you expand on that?
If you really want to insult an Iranian, call him an Arab. he will really be insulted. Okay? Look, Iran is not only a great ancient culture, even in Iran today, there are elements of pluralism even under the mullahs. They survive even under the barbarians. Okay? And you just let them, and they will. They have the potential. I see today such a potential developing in the UAE, very slowly but very systematically. And I respect it. I respect it very much, because it's not easy to bring it together with Arab political culture. Okay? But the Iranians have demonstrated that they can do it. By the way, look at Iranian science. Look at Iranian technology. Unfortunately, look at their arms industry. They remind me of Israel in the 1990s. Okay? They do reverse engineering. Today we are suffering from an anti-tank missile that is a reverse engineering of the Gil. They had a Gil and they reversed engineered it, and it's functioning. Okay? So they demonstrate on every level that they're different.
You're speaking as if the Palestinian people have no potential.
Look, they have a potential, but they need to change the fact that in their national body there is not a single constructive bone. Okay? Now, do you have individual Palestinians that are very impressive? Yes, Salam Fayyad is a nation builder. Okay? He was prime minister of the Palestinians because the Americans imposed them on the Palestinians. We're friends. I mean, I consider him a friend. I hope he considers me a friend. Why did he never have more than 2% support of the Palestinian people? Because he's a nation builder. Because he doesn't believe in having one role model of a terrorist that kills Jews. Because he wanted to do something else. So the political culture of the Palestinians is profoundly flawed. Can Palestinians change? Of course. Look at what happened in Turkey. 2 cultural revolutions in 1 century. Mustafa Kemal, Ataturk, 100 years ago, in the positive direction, and the present barbarian in the wrong direction.
So,
by the way, Zionism is a cultural revolution against the culture of exile, of the Golan. Mm-hmm. With the exception of the ultra-Orthodox, but that's a different matter.
Different issue. Is the 7th of October a result of individual extremists, or is it a cultural thing? Because you're saying that...
No. These radicals in the Gaza Strip command their society. Not only were they elected to lead them, this is what they are. This is what the Muslim brothers are, not only in Gaza, wherever they are. Okay? The major reason the Arab world failed in competing, in meeting the challenges of the 19th century, the 20th century, and the 21st century is the sentiment that is reflected in the Muslim Brotherhood. This is bringing back the worst part of Islam. You could bring back other parts, okay? The Muslims 1400 years ago were very talented. They occupied large parts of the world, but not only with their army, also with their culture. People wanted to belong to this culture. Look at Maimonides in Spain, okay? They considered Arabic a language of civilization, okay? A language. Today you will learn Arabic in order to fight terrorism better, not in order to find the most interesting cultural contributions or scientific contributions. Cultures can change. They can become fossilized. By the way, again, Jews do it. This is what the ultra-Orthodox do. They have fossilized and twisted elements of Judaism to become parasites and the greatest danger to the future of the Jewish people. Okay? So it doesn't only happen with Muslims, it can happen with Jews, it happened with Christians, it happened with others. You can modify a culture, you can revolutionize a culture, you can adjust a culture. Look at what Japan did after the Second World War. Okay? Not at the expense of being indigenous Japanese, but in adopting a pluralistic and a democratic way of life. You can do it.
So how to bring the Palestinian people to become a productive
You
culture?
can't bring other people to do anything. People who don't want to change, don't change. They can not change. Okay? Again, look at the ultra-Orthodox who didn't want to change.
They are
Unfortunately, they're changing in the wrong direction. Constantly in the wrong direction. The overwhelming majority of them are changing in the wrong direction. And their corrupt rabbis and their entire corrupt system.
Okay.
Look, on the other hand, at Jews who came from Eastern Europe or from the Middle East, and they came from what I consider to be inferior cultures, because a culture that treats women like cattle is inferior to a culture that treats women equally. Okay? But the Jews from Morocco wanted to change, and the Jews from Eastern Europe wanted to adopt values of Western Europe. Okay? A lot of the Jews came from the armpit of Europe, but they wanted and adopted. Even when they came, their only experience was with either Tsarism or communism. Okay? And look at Moroccan Jews in Israel today.
Yes.
Look, on the other hand, at Palestinians.
Do you see any signs that there is change happening in the Palestinian culture?
There is change, but unfortunately not positive change. Unfortunately, I think that in the West Bank you have a strengthening of Hamas. They respect the resilience of the Gazans, and I think even the resilience is wrong there, because it's not that they want to continue in order to do something productive. They want to survive as a fighting organization. But this is revered by many Arabs because killing Jews is their objective. Again, I'm coming back to it from every possible angle. I don't see a major change there, not even among Arabs in Israel. Okay? When you have people like Ayman Odeh or Ahmed Tibi saying Gaza will win, what they mean is what Gaza is really all about, namely killing Jews. Now, is it what they want? I don't know. I don't care. Is it what makes them popular? This distorted sense of honor. Honor is very important, but they have a pathological sense of honor. I will stick to whatever wrong I have done because I am unbreakable and I will not capitulate. Okay? So, no, I don't see, let me put it this way. If I would have seen a major change in Palestinian society, I wouldn't have a problem with the Palestinian state. I would dictate my borders, but I would say, okay, I don't want to sit in Nablus forever. But if you establish a Palestinian state today, they will bring Iran to 15 kilometers from here. They will bring militias from, Afghanistan and Iraq to road number 6 in Israel. Whatever they have, they weaponize. Okay? And therefore, at the moment, I don't see a chance of reaching a historic compromise that I would very much like to see.
I understand. Our time is up. I hope we can do this again. Thank you, Dan Schueftan. That was very interesting. And until next time.